peace and love. Welcome back to Tunji Talks, the home of I Have a Thirst. So yeah, your copy of my brand new book, Whiteboard Black Pieces, Race in the West. Click the Amazon link in the description down below. To support the channel, check out the PayPal and Cash App links in the description. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Today I'm doing a podcast with a singer-songwriter who is very near and dear to my heart. So without further ado, ladies and gents, here is the podcast. Alright, so I'm here with my cousin, Katanya, a singer-songwriter. And let's get into it. So, Katanya, how did your love of music start?
I think that would almost be like asking a baby, like, when did they learn to walk? Because I just think it was such an intrinsic part of my life. So music was just always around. So yeah, there was always music in the household, and I come from a huge family, so there was always parties with music. So I didn't even realise that this kind of love was being formed, because it was just there. It was background, it was in the forefront, depending on the circumstances. It's just always brought me great joy, and I have very fond memories of dancing about the house, dancing in the living room with my siblings, with my mum, and then wider with the family, and then obviously as you get older with friends and stuff. So yeah, I would just say it's just always been there.
Being a singer-songwriter, there must have been like artists who you used to listen to that you wanted to initially imitate, and who would those artists be? If you had to name like 4 or 5, who do you think those would be?
I would say so growing up there was a lot of reggae in the house, lovers rock in particular, so like Janet Kay, and then I first started songwriting. I wrote my first song at 10. I had like a book, someone got me a notebook for maybe Christmas or something, and I initially wanted to be a rapper. I didn't want to be a singer. So it was just a way of kind of expressing myself, and I had a notebook where I'd write my lyrics, but I quickly learned that I was terrible at rapping, and so that I left that to one side, but still had this love of songwriting. I found it quite therapeutic that coming from quite a strict Caribbean background, that I could kind of express all the things that that a 10-year-old wants to rebel against through writing songs. So the initial people who I was really inspired by was Salt and Pepper, okay. Queen Latifah. I really my mum was a very strong woman, so I was really attracted to women that were also very strong and very assertive, and were able to use their music to show like the strength of women. I don't think I gave it that much thought at the time, but now looking back, I can see where those correlations lie. And then as I got older, and then I started getting into singing more. My biggest fans as a teenager were Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston. Oh my gosh, yeah. So huge fans of theirs. And then I suppose as I got older, and I didn't think so much about artists. And then I should say as a teenager, I really loved Mary J. Blige. And I guess it was for the same kind of one. I thought she was amazing. There was no one else out there like her. The fact that she mixed hip hop and singing was like, oh my gosh, that's just amazing. She's mixed the two. And so it was, again, I think I've always been attracted to, or more pulled towards singers that female singers that were just really strong and empowering, and didn't kind of stand behind a man. Again, as a teenager, I really don't think I gave it that much thought, but I realised like I kind of have a particular type of artist that I'm always drawn to. yeah, and so but then I think my music taste began to like develop more so, and then I started to um look at people who wrote songs, so songwriters as opposed to just performers. And then really loved music by like Burt Bacharach and Diane Warren, and Prince, and just finding out that you had these amazing artists, or sometimes people who you thought were behind the scenes, but then wrote some of my favourite songs, for instance. So yeah, then I started to look more at the kind of songwriting side and production side, and that interested me more and more as I got older.
So let's talk about singing a little bit. So were you one of those people who was like naturally blessed with singing, or was that something that you picked up through going to singing lessons or being part of a choir, or how did you discover that you had an amazing voice?
So again, kind of similar to music, singing was just always around the house. So my mom sang a lot, and would sing to all of the records and stuff that she played, from Bob Marley to Stevie Wonder, to Gregory Isaacs, so and Nina Simone. Yeah, so there was just a lot of singing around the house. So singing for me initially was just fun. It was just a fun way to express yourself. I didn't really give it much more thought than that initially. And then, yeah, I think because I realised I could combine the songwriting with the singing, then I guess I tried to master my art a bit more. And so, yeah, so I did like music GCSE, for instance, where, yeah, my first instrument was vocals. And then I went on to do a BTEC National, where I was singer, songwriter. And I noticed that people seemed to respond well to my songs, because obviously before I'd just been writing these songs to myself. And no one, I hadn't performed like original material and stuff. But yeah, when I went off to college, I kind of realised that I could do both. And yeah, I'd never had singing lessons until I was like 21 or something. So I didn't realise you could have singing lessons. So I just sing and used to just try to get better by emulating, people like Mary J. Blige and Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston. These were people that I thought had amazing voices. So I just thought if you just keep singing along to their music, like one day you'll get better, but without thinking about the technical side of it. And I suppose I really found my own voice when I went to uni. So I did a music degree at Goldsmiths University, and then I had a really good vocal coach there, and she kind of just really opened up my world to how to really use your voice. I'd never really known how to use it properly before, and to get like different textures and colours and feelings, and I didn't know how to do that before. So I think that was a big game changer. And then I stopped trying to emulate other people who I loved and respected, but then started to realise actually there's something within me and my particular voice that's special, and that's okay. Yeah, so going to uni was a really good thing for those reasons, and many more, of course.
So you talked about like adding kind of like different textures and colours and feelings. Like for a novice who like doesn't know doesn't know like anything about how would you achieve that? Adding like textures, colours and feelings. So for example, train as an actor, like one way an actor might add colour and texture to the work is by uniting their work. So for instance, if you've got like a monologue, you go through the monologue and you break it down in units. Then you add an action to the unit, so that way you add a little bit of texture, you add a bit of colour. Then once you put that all together, it changes the overall piece. So how in music, how do you go about adding texture and colour?
So I just used to think, because I was always attracted to singers that with big voices. I used to just think you had to belt everything, and then realised through going to Goldsmiths and then kind of expanding the type of things I listened to. So I got really into one of Dido's albums, which would have just never been something that I would listen to. I started to listen to a bit of Eva Cassidy, and just kind of expand my repertoire and listen to people who use their voices in different ways. So yeah, just sometimes being like really quiet and really intimate, or if you think of someone like Norah Jones, can really achieve so much because people can see that you're really singing from the heart. I'm not saying that you can't belt and sing from the heart, but it just adds that kind of vulnerability, I suppose, which I'd never tried to use within my voice before, because it was all about strength before. But then realising that there can be strength in other ways, or kind of like using your falsetto in a particular way to achieve a certain sound or a mood. And then I did some singing abroad, and one of the things that whilst I was abroad, so I got through the auditions and I got the gig, which is great. But one of the feedback from the person that hired me was I needed to go and stand in front of a mirror and sing and look at the emotions that my face conveys. Because he was like, when people watch you sing, particularly if it's a ballad, and you're not sort of dancing, or that when it's just you on a stage and you're vulnerable, you need to be able to in a way act, I suppose, and convey everything that you're singing, not just through the voice but also through the gestures, and it needs to kind of consume you for the people listening to believe it. And initially it really cheesed me off because I'd given a really good vocal, but actually that person, again, that was a bit of a game changer for me, because I hadn't thought about, you need to act, people need to believe that you're in love, or you're consumed with sorrow, or whatever it is that you're singing about. It needs to be about so much more than the voice. It needs to be your body language, it needs to be your facial expressions, and so all of those things have really, really helped me over the years, because now I'm such a confident performer. And I guess it's all of those little small steps and those little small nuggets of wisdom, even if at the time my pride didn't want to admit that there was anything wrong. But actually you can only get better. And I think singing, it's like a profession. Like, you don't just get to the top and you finish there. No, you're always going to be able to push harder. You're always going to be able to add something else that makes your performance that little bit more special. So it's given me such a lot of confidence now when I'm in front of an audience. All of those little nuggets have really helped.
Who was the first notable person you saw live at a concert? And as of today, who would you like to see live?
I was very fortunate. I had a very cool aunt who took me to see my absolute idols, Salt and Pepper, at the Brixton Academy with my aunt. And I was like 11 or 12 years old, and it just blew my mind away. They were everything that I wanted them to be and more, and just feeling that energy in the audience and just like dancing to my heart's content. It was phenomenal. I don't recall seeing very many other 11-year-olds, but I was really, really happy to be there, and it left a huge impression on me. And I am quite obsessed with stage presence and performances and stuff. Again, for it to just not be about the vocals, about that confidence and that attitude and that swagger and banter, and they possessed all of that and so much more. So I saw them. I saw quite a few people when I was young. Actually, I saw Bobby Brown as well. At Wembley with my aunt, my very cool aunt, who used to take me to all of these concerts. And he was again phenomenal singer, dancer, just almost like an athlete. You know, the stage was huge, and he owned every inch of it. And yeah, as a child who had to stand on the chair because I was too short to see above the adults in front, it was, yeah, I was just completely captivated by his performance. So those are my kind of earlies, and then I saw similar people like MC Hammer and stuff like that as a child with my super cool aunt. And then as I got older and I was able to go to concerts by myself, I saw Mary J. Blige.
Wow.
And yeah, she brought me to tears. Her ability, I know some people say that her vocals aren't perfect, but for me it's not about perfection. I think it's about what you bring to the stage, and her ability to have every audience member eat from her hand, it's phenomenal. And yeah, to go from like big dance tunes, and then to go to a place where she's vulnerable, you know, it's just amazing to see such a vast range of emotions from one artist. One of the last concerts that I went to was to see Prince.
Wow.
At the O2.
Wow. That's a big one.
And
That's a big one.
just, yeah, it was mind-blowing. And he went over, like, he wasn't, you know, you get artists that, like, they kind of do their time, they do however many songs, like, he went on and on and on, and he left the stage and we thought it was over, and then he came back and he gave more. Just, yeah, just phenomenal. And to just know that this person has written, you know, amazing songs for himself, amazing songs for others, that he played like a million instruments, and that he took kind of identity and sexuality and masculinity and all of those things and just turned them all up on their head. Yeah, it was just amazing to be in his presence. I am I'm a bit strange because I've got kind of lots of 90s people that I loved as a teenager in the 90s that I'd seen as a teenager or in my 20s, but I don't want to see them again because I saw them at their height, and I'm really nervous of like my lasting impression of one of my heroes to not be a good one. So I'd see Mary J. Blige again in a heartbeat because I know that her standard has always remained the same.
Yeah.
But I won't say any names, but there are some like R&B bands and stuff that I probably wouldn't see, like if they were doing like a comeback tour, because I just would want to remember them when they were at the very peak of their careers. But I would love to see Alicia Keys. I've never seen Alicia Keys. She's one of my favourite songwriters. And I think she's phenomenal. And I'm not quite sure how I didn't get around to seeing her, but I haven't seen her and I'd love to do so. Yeah, and I guess I think songwriter-wise, like maybe someone like Carole King, who has like written phenomenal songs for Aretha Franklin and lots of kind of you know, classic soul songs that I really like. Yeah, so maybe somebody like that. Just live performances. I love seeing live performances, and I love seeing people's range of emotions, and I still get inspired by them.
And we are back. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you soon.